Good morning and welcome to Elgin County Council. It is November the 12th, 9 a.m., and I will call this meeting to order. First order of business is the adoption of the minutes.
Resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on October 22nd, 2024, and the minutes of the special meeting of council held on November 5th, 2024, be adopted.
Okay, those minutes were circulated. If there are no errors or omissions, I'll entertain a mover and seconder to adopt. Councillor Latham and Councillor Hentz will second. All in favor? That is carried. I'll remind members of any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Moving on to section 4, presenting petitions, presentations, and delegations. This morning, we have the Elgin County Fire Chiefs regarding the Elgin County Fire Radio Communication System. So welcome, Chiefs, and whoever your spokesperson is this morning, Chief Omerod.
Thank you, Warden Ketchuba, members of council. My name is Raymond Ormerod. I'm the fire chief for the municipality of Central Elgin, as well as the county fire coordinator. With me is Chief Jeff MacArthur from Southwold Fire Station, Dutton Dunwich, and West Elgin. He's also acts as the alternate fire coordinator for Elgin County. We have Chief Harry Baranick from Bayham, municipality of Bayham. We have Chief Todd McCone from town of Elmer, and we have Chief Jeff Spoor from municipality of Malahide. So thank you. We're here today to give you a brief overview of our radio system. Originally, it came into play in 2014. The final contract with an intermunicipal agreement came into play in 2015. We are starting to have some issues with the system, so we wanted to bring everybody up to speed and be able to present this deputation in front of county council so that all of the lower tiers got the same initial information from us. So as I said, 2014, 2015, a new simulcast radio system was put in place across the county. That radio system has 2 operation channels and 3 tactical channels. That allows us to communicate across the county on 2 different frequencies, and then within our own fire area or fire emergency area on a TAC channel. As we mentioned, an intermunicipal agreement was developed back in 2014, 2015 with all of the lower tiers buying into the system. A committee was formed at that point in time with the 2 full-time fire chiefs of the day, one from Elmer and one from Central Elgin, and the CAOs and a member of council to be able to move this program forward and to develop the radio communications plan. This is a brief little layout of how the system operates, more technical than what's required for you folks. As you can see, the first line there states that the system is currently operating at about 90%. So I mentioned the 3 tactical channels. The system being built in 2014 and 2015, technology has moved so rapidly in the electronic field that the parts that were installed back in those days can no longer be replaced, can no longer be repaired. So we have 1 tactical channel that sits at the forward radio tower that we no longer have available to us. So the hurdle that could encompass is Southwold being at a call with Yarmouth Center being at a call that are in close proximity. They can put them on 2 different TAC channels so that we do not communicate over top of one another. But if there's another call within that same area around the Ford Tower, then we start to run into issues. The benefit of the individual TAC channels is that they are recorded within Tillsonburg, so that if there happen to be any litigation down the road, we actually have live transcripts that were recorded from that. TAC channel in the portion is unusable, as we mentioned, limited spares. Originally, when the system was put in place, they had numerous spare components for all of the radio program. Over the last number of years, we have started to run out of spares, and that's what's happened with the TAC channel. We no longer have a repeater that can be replaced or rebuilt to go into that to provide us with that 3rd TAC channel in that area. One of the options that has been available to us is we can replace all 7 repeaters across the county With an upgraded model, that will then give us 6 spare repeaters to be able to utilize if we have another one go down. That's one of the options that we're looking at. Increasing frequency repairs. It's not that uncommon for us now to run into, I'll call it a major hurdle, once a month or once every other month with the system. We have a repeater go down, we have a tower go down, issues such as that. We're able to work around that currently very quickly, and the provider is able to come out and make repairs to the system very quickly. But we are starting to find more and more issues with equipment failures at this point in time. So these happens to be our site locations. I'm not going to list all of the site locations that are there. One of the issues that has been on the docket for the last few years has been a situation with the Ford water tower. We now found unofficially that the Ford water tower will be coming down. The problem with that is the Ford water tower is one of our major sites for radio communications, and it's because of its height that is there. When that tower does come down, we will have a very large gap within the county for radio communications within that area that's affected by the Ford water tower. So the Ford water tower would cover the Southwold, Talbotville station, would cover the Yarmouth Center station, and the areas that those 2 stations respond to. So it's a significant portion of Elgin County for us with the population density, because you're looking at Lyndhurst, you're looking at Talbotville and places such as that. Future considerations. So the county fire chiefs brought a collaborative report to the respective councils back in 2022, late 22 or early 23. Because we were starting to run into some issues with the system, and we knew the system was starting to age, the county fire chiefs went out and had a third-party consultant come in and do a review of our system and where our system currently sits. There were some recommendations made at that point in time. At that point, the system, the consultant felt, was a very good system and should continue to provide us with the communications that we needed, but did suggest that down the road, yes, you will be looking at replacing the system. It is my understanding some municipalities at that point in time started to put money into reserves for the replacement of the radio system. Some municipalities have held off at that point. So request for proposal options. The fire chiefs are not radio communication specialists, I will say that. So I guess one of the things that we would ask council, Elgin County Council, to give consideration to is our next steps. We could do Band-Aid solutions for the system to keep the system up and running. We could go through and do a minor upgrade to keep the system going for a few more years. We could go and do an RFP. We know that now there are multiple companies out there that would be interested in bidding on a system regardless of what it is we do. But as I said, we are not radio communication specialists. We do not know how to build an RFP for this. There is the intermunicipal agreement. And again, going back to how that started with the 2 full-time chiefs and the CAOs from each municipality and a council member for each municipality. What I believe the fire chiefs, as we've had a discussion, would like to put forth to county council is that the fire chiefs be able to work with a committee with a member of county council or form a committee of some sort to be able to start to look at this before we start to have significant issues with downtime with our radio system. So in a nutshell, that's the presentation that we have for you. Again, the system still continues to operate, not at its full capacity, which it was originally built for. And we are starting to find more and more issues with it. As a collaborative group, we felt it was best to come here with the first presentation versus each fire chief going to the respective councils and maybe answers differing from one way or another, only because the history, none of us were here when the system was built with the municipalities. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Chief, for that presentation. Just to clarify, the ask for today is you're looking for an acquiescence from council to continue the discussion, perhaps even including a member of county council on that discussion. Is that what we're looking for?
I believe it is. Again, we're not professionals in this. We would definitely endorse assistance from county council, however that is made up. We would like to be part of that because we know the system that currently is there. We know where their weaknesses are currently. We do have some, I'll say, dead spots where we do not have any radio communication whatsoever within the county. Those are some of those items that we would like to look at if there was a possibility of upgrading the system. But yes, we're looking for assistance. It may be county council's wishes that we take this back to the lower tier and do it independently at the lower tier. I'll speak frankly, my concern with that is it may start to go in different directions and not move forward as a united component. So,
All right, thank you for that answer, Chief. Colleagues, Deputy Warden Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Fortunately or unfortunately, I was sitting around the table when this transpired. My recollection was before we done a joint venture in 2014, it was very different across the county. And I think this really brought everything together and made it a whole lot easier for our firefighters and mutual aid and automatic aid and all that. I think this is something we should do together again. It's definitely was a benefit back then. So I know with the Ford Tower coming down, we aren't sure what the new tower will look like. We know there will be a tower, probably not as tall, but it'll be a big, fat, wide silo, basically, possibly. There is opportunities in Fingal's. There will be a Bell/Rogers, possibly tower going up right on our yard the next year or so. I think it's something where we all need to work on this together, though. That's for certain. We need to do that. That'd be my comment.
Thank you for your comments, Deputy Warden. Anyone else? Councillor Cookett.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just to be clear, I think I was around when we initially did this as well. And just to be clear about the costing of this system is up to each municipality, correct? Each municipality has a different costing for this radio system. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Chief.
thank you, Warden Ketchabah. With regards to part of the costing, currently the municipality of Central Elgin takes in all of the invoices. So for example, the towers that you saw, there's a number of tower rentals. There is a service maintenance agreement on a monthly rotation. Those invoices come into the municipality of Central Elgin. Those invoices are divided up equally among the municipalities for the rentals and for the maintenance agreement.
Thank you for that, Chief. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Okay, I happen to agree with you, Deputy Warden. I think we need to continue the discussion here. I think a holistic approach across the county benefits us all, particularly from a coordination point of view, recognizing that, yes, the system is 10 years old and that upgrades are going to be required. We just don't know what the scale of that upgrade is going to be. And I think before we can even make a decision at the local level, we need that information. So keeping that in mind, I'm hoping I've given staff enough time to script out a draft motion here. Currently, we have a prepared motion which simply to receive and file. But if you wish to provide more direction than that, it's where I'm looking for staff. Deputy Warden.
No, I do agree. We need to do this together and So I think some coordination at the county level would be beneficial right now.
Again, I would agree, particularly at this point where we're trying to just gather the facts. Counselor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Ward. I do agree. I mean, if we don't all work together on this, we're not going to get a good product at the end of the day because there's so many problems that could arise along the municipalities. So I do think we should work together and probably get, I guess there's a possibility of getting a request to see what this might even cost. And I think we probably should move forward on that and getting this done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Bear with us. Who knew the ask could be that complicated?
I was hoping it wasn't.
Okay.
Resolved that the presentation from the Elgin County Fire Chiefs be received and filed, and that the County of Elgin coordinate the development of a working group with the fire chiefs, local municipal representatives, and county staff to gather information and report back to council with recommendations.
Having heard the motion, do I have a mover and seconder for that? Counselor Latham and Deputy Warden Jones. All in favor? And that is carried. And thank you, Chief and Chiefs. Moving on with Section 5, Committee of the Whole.
Resolved that we do now move into Committee of the Whole.
We have a mover and seconder for that, please. Counselor Noble, Counselor Widner will second. All in favor? That's carried. Section 6, reports of council, outside boards and staff. 6.1, the warden's activity report for October. This report has been published and available for your review. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them. Otherwise, I'd be looking for a mover and seconder to receive for information. Counselor Noble will move. Counselor Cookett will second. Sorry to usurp you there, Madam Clerk. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 6.2, from Counselor Noble, the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee appointment. Are you handling this one, Counselor Noble?
Sure, I can speak to this one.
Thank you.
The Joint Accessibility Committee met and we approved Carleen Green for the appointment for that position. We were looking for some folks and we're happy to move that forward.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions? Concerns? Okay, thank you for the hunt on that. Catherine?
Resolved that the report titled Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, JAAC, Committee Appointment from Counselor Noble dated November 12th, 2024 be received and filed, and that Carleen Green be appointed to the Elgin/Central Elgin Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee for the remainder of the 2023 to 2026 term, subject to the approval of the Council of the Municipality of Central Elgin.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Hentz will move and Counselor Noble will second. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 6.3, Director of Engineering Services on the Asset and Work Order Management Software System, a feasibility study. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Mr. Warden. Through you to the rest of County Council. The County of Elgin received a resolution from the Municipality of Central Elgin requesting the county to explore the purchase of an asset and work order management software system to achieve consistency and accurate reporting between all lower tier municipalities in Elgin County. The idea of a county-wide work order management system has been discussed for many years. Recently, County Council retained Strategy Corp in 2021 to review the county's road maintenance agreement. One of those recommendations read, beyond the scope of the 2022 RMA, the county and LMP should investigate the feasibility of leveraging an asset and work order management system to facilitate financial reporting by road class to allow for evaluation of the existing funding model in the future. This recommendation was discussed at that time by the local road supervisors, and it was deferred since some of the municipalities were already implementing their own local solutions. In June 2024, the municipality of Central Elgin requested the county explore the purchase of a asset and work order management system so that all LMPs would be equipped with the necessary tools to track activities and generate accurate reports. The topic was once again discussed with the public works supervisors across the county, and it was acknowledged that most LMPs have different software tools, and some have recently implemented new systems of their own. It was also noted that any asset management system would extend beyond providing road maintenance services to county roads only, but it would likely integrate with all municipal services, reporting, and financial software solutions. The topic was therefore deferred to the RMA's Governance Committee, which is also the Elgin CAO's working group. That group believed that the best path forward was to solicit support from Elgin County Council to fund an asset and work order feasibility study. Such a study would gather input from all stakeholders at each municipality, and it would recommend technological, staff resources, as well as create an implementation roadmap and timeline. A short list of vendors could then be developed for issuance of requests for proposals, and the initial hardware and software costs, as well as maintenance, technical support, and service contracts could also be discussed in that feasibility study. Once the study would be completed, each of Elgin's local municipal partners would be requested to support and participate in the implementation, albeit there may be a number of legal and technical challenges that would need to be considered at that time. From a county maintenance agreement perspective only, the system could provide insight into costs, efficiencies, and inefficiencies across the LMPs. The feasibility study is estimated to cost $30,000. A fulsome asset and work order software solution, that cost will vary significantly depending on the scope of use and how broadly the system is implemented. For example, it would likely tie to your existing financial systems. Ideally, it is also tied to automatic vehicle locating or AVL systems. It could take on citizen service requests. Ideally, it provides customized RMA financial reporting. It could help with asset management and planning tools. It could do staff time tracking, inventory control. It could also provide, as a separate contract, technical support and maintenance. And the cost would also depend on the number of users and the training required. We're estimating at this point that the total overall cost would exceed $1 million and plus require additional staff resources across the county. Once the feasibility study is completed and delivered to council, decisions on how these costs are funded could be made. If supported by council, as a first step, it's therefore recommended that a project be included in the 2025 budget to provide, to solicit a feasibility study to complete the implementation of an asset management and work order software system, and that's initially valued at $30,000. I'd be pleased to answer any questions you have in regards to this report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peter, for that report. I'm hopeful that there are a number of questions around the table on this one. Deputy Warden Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Not sure question or concern. Southwold just implemented one. We're in the midst of training our external services staff. I hope it's going to be compatible with whatever we do, but it's not a very cheap system. It took a long time to get to where we are. But anyway, just I'm hoping it's compatible with whatever we do, because it's not a cheap system.
Any other comments or questions? Counselor Whitner?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden, through to Peter. If this does go through, the municipalities accept this, will they basically have to abandon the systems they have now? Or are they going to try to integrate them as well as they could, or is that up to the report to maybe put some light on that?
Through you, Mr. Warden, the idea would be to choose one system for the entire county's use. I, I'm not completely familiar with these systems. I would hope that they could integrate with some of the other systems municipalities have in place, for example, with their vehicle tracking or their financial systems. But the actual system, as Deputy Warden Jones has mentioned, there are two major ones out there. One is CityWorks and one is Citywide. And some municipalities across Elgin have implemented one or looking to implement the other. So the feasibility study would narrow it down to one. And if a municipality was not currently using the system that the feasibility study ultimately recommended, it would be hopeful that that municipality would also transition to one system.
Counselor Jiguer?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Reading the report, I couldn't really pick up on a sense of urgency or consensus, or that, yes, there's a problem and there's a sort of rallying cry of like, and we've got the solution. What I picked up on is one group of public works supervisors and then saying, yeah, maybe there's a problem, but it's just, we're not willing to agree. And then you pass the hot potato to the RMA Governance Committee. It was like, nah, again, not hearing a compelling case for like, we need this, like we heard this morning, for example, with the fire chiefs. So then we pass the hot potato to council, who now like I said, I'm struggling to know what and to understand what the compelling case is, the business case and return on investment when I hear numbers and I hear that lower tiers have already invested in other services. So now we're going to pay $30,000 to ask consultants to hold our hot potato for a while. So then they can just bring it back to council to make a decision, and so on and so on. So either there has to be a joint, clear, compelling case coming from the lower tiers. Otherwise, what I'm seeing is potentially crossing the line where it is the responsibility of each lower tier to fulfill their obligations under the RMAs, and they should, some of them have already invested. It's up to each municipality to fulfill their responsibility, whatever software they need to be. And I'm not hearing a case for a joint service here.
Okay. Yes, Counselor Sloan?
Unlike my honorable counselor here, I'm going to defer to Peter, who is the expert. We had the fire chiefs come and we deferred to them on what we needed to have done. Let me ask Peter, when it comes to the advantages, we're spending $30,000, which is a drop in the bucket when looking at the overall budget. It's less than what we give to the art gallery, but could you just comment, please, on specifically what it is that you think this will be when it comes to providing value for us?
Through you, Mr. Warden, to Councillor Sloan. As it relates to the RMA, there is only a part of this total investment is going to value the road maintenance agreement as it relates to maintaining county roads. As Councillor Jiguer had mentioned, the spirit of the RMA provides lots of flexibility to each municipality to complete the maintenance tasks as their resources fit. There's an end result minimum maintenance standards bar that has to be met. And every municipality completes those operations a bit differently based on the resources they have available, based on the number of roads they maintained and the topography of the areas. BAM has different challenges than West Elgin in relation to geographical topography, for example. and winter control. So the advantages, some of the challenges we've had over the years with the RMA is although the annual amounts we provide, the allocations provided to the municipalities over the long term are very close to the amounts reported to the county as expenditures, there are fluctuations in those costs. There is a concern going forward because we've had the experience of mild winters that once we receive a real winter season, that every municipality will exceed their RMA allocations. What this type of system is hoping to achieve is more finite and accurate reporting to determine if there are gaps in the existing funding financial system. Without some of this detailed reporting, and this was proven by Strategy Corp when they did a fulsome RMA investigation, is there wasn't enough detail by most LMPs that defined what their true costs were. And so if such a system was implemented, more accurate costs could be generated as to what the real life costs were being experienced by each local municipality. However, the system in its entirety is far beyond that. This is the lifeblood, the heartbeat of your municipality if it was implemented in its ideal state. A customer could call, solicit, make a recommendation on a service request that would get fed through the system and a work order could be generated. Once the activity was completed, all of the inputs would be known, being from how long, which vehicles and equipment was used, what staff time was used, and then accurate financial reporting. Again, all that information would go to a separate system. It would be a large machine that the municipality, as well as all of its users, could utilize. However, there's a great deal of cost to implement that and to manage that. And the system we have in place now meets the county's needs. There was not a unanimous vote to progress down this road from the Public Works supervisors, nor at the governance committee. It's a nice to have. Ideally, it would be great if something like this was implemented, but there'd be a number of staff resources that would be required as well.
Okay, okay.
Sorry, one quick follow-up through you, Warden. When we talk about nice to haves versus the opportunity to provide more intel and some detailed about how we'd save money and that kind of stuff. When it comes to important nice to haves, like putting lights on the top of the building for $225,000, did that come to council with the last council? Did that come around the horseshoe for $250,000 to light up the roof for Halloween and other important days? Was that a decision that was made by the council? I'm just curious. Thank you, Warden.
I don't know if anyone's prepared to answer that or even has that answer. Yeah.
Just for clarification, Warden, I asked for the budget for the building, 450 Sunset. The budget is approximately $32 million to improve it. We're about 28.5 into it so far, but the lighting cost is approximately $200,000. And I just wondered, we talked about nice to haves. And I think when a report comes through where we have the ability to not only save money, but to look at some strategic implementation, it just seems to me that something like this would be money well spent. But that's my opinion on behalf of the municipality of Central Elgin. Thank you.
All right. First off, I'm going to suggest that without having that particular budget in front of my mind, I don't envision where the figure of 28 million comes from. I don't understand that, but that's not germane really right at the moment. I see some other hands on the floor. I'm going to go to Councillor Cookett.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Where do I begin? Being a councillor, an Elgin County councillor, we're supposed to look at the broad picture of what's good for Elgin County. If I look at what's good for Elmer, I'm sure that the work order management system would not be swamped by items that come from Elmer with our 4 kilometers of county roads. And if I look at the other items that this particular project would deal with, such as vehicle locating and citizen service and RMA financial reporting and capital asset management. We do well with all of those already. So I kind of look at the cost of $1 million seems like a huge cost to maintain over the years. However, as a comment, I'm willing to look at the feasibility study to see what it will kind of give us an idea that the improvement would be good for every one of us. And so having said that about Elmer really doesn't need any of this, I'm willing to wait and see whether it can be of use to us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Counselor Shiger, did you have your hand up or withdraw? Okay, Deputy Warden Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So Southwell, we've just embarked on citywide, and staff, the senior staff have done their training. It's going to be fully integrated into our finance department,
Mhm.
the whole works. We're down to the final step of training the external workers. And this has not been cheap. It costs a lot of money to do this, and we finally got it where we think it's going to help everybody, including the county, because everything is going to be tracked properly.
Mhm.
It's going to work with asset management a whole lot better. And I guess I'm concerned that we have a product that staff wanted and staff was happy with, and we've done all the work. I hate to think that we would have to scrap it and start over. That's the biggest concern I have. I don't know what program you're dealing with right now at the county, but
Right.
I hope there's some sort of a patch where you can just transfer files, PDF or whatever. But
Right.
I know it's a complicated system at the county right now where you're using spreadsheets and whatnot, but to some degree, but I have, that's the concern I have as Southwold, that we've spent a crap load of money on this system and a lot of staff hour training, which just doesn't come cheap. And to think that someday down the road, we might have to scrap it.
Well, exactly. It's, if I understand from the report and from Peter's comments, that it's a 50-50, whether it's citywide or cityscape. Is that the two? Yes. Whether those two are even compatible between one another, I don't know. And I don't expect you have those answers either. The one thing that comes to my mind is that regardless of what particular programming we're going to use, or whether we're going to stay the same or move forward, as long as the LMPs are meeting the minimum standard, some are going to deliver above, but as long as they're meeting the standard. And I think it's an admirable goal to try to get some consistency at least to the minimum standard of maintenance across the county for those particular county roads. But when I look at this particular report and suggesting that this is going to be all encompassing, including far reaching even into local roads, perhaps asset management, puts us that much closer to an amalgamated community, doesn't it? If that's what your goal is, ladies and gentlemen. But as to Councillor Cookett's comments, until you know through the investigation, we don't know. But if it ain't broke, why are we messing with it? Councillor Noble.
Through you, Warden, without this software or software like this, are we able to prove that we've met the minimum standard? Like right now, as a county, how do we know if we've met the minimum standard on these roads without just being told
Mhm.
that we met the minimum standard? So with the software, I guess I would ask Peter,
Mhm.
would we be able to prove that we've met the minimum standard? Because I know we spend a lot of money on a lot of other things so that we can prove, like the signs with the reflective ability of them. We have a company that goes out and does that. So if we don't have the software, that's my question.
Absolutely, a very good question. And Peter, can you provide some comment on that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Warden. All of the information we currently have will not differ implementing a software system like this. The way we track minimum compliance, the county's obligation through the RMA is simply to do a visual inspection quarterly to ensure that our contractors, who are the LMPs, are maintaining their responsibilities. The LMPs, as you know, your work staff patrols roads based on the frequency required under the minimum maintenance standards as dictated by the province. It's up to the municipality to maintain those records. Should there be a claim based on a maintenance activity that was not done to meet the standards, it would be the municipality that would have to speak to a court of discovery in that instance. The county doesn't direct the operations of each municipality, nor monitors as frequently as each municipality, all the road tours. Ours is a cursory inspection once quarterly only. And that was only implemented about 10 years after the RMA was even structured, after the Hipson inquest, where the coroner's inquiry revealed that we should have some oversight to ensure that our contractors are fulfilling their obligations. So the question is, will this software system help better manage and provide information to us if these minimum maintenance standards are being met? Is there compliance across the board? I don't see a great deal of difference in that regard. What the system does do is it'll collect all these various pieces of information that we currently have. We use GPS and GIS systems now. We accept financial reporting from municipalities annually. And now we report to the governance committee. We historically had reported to county council annually on what expenditures were. The new RMA speaks that we report to the governance committee. We accept whatever format the municipality wants to send us that information in. Most of the time it's a spreadsheet or a PDF document. Once again, the software system isn't going to change that. It may just be in a consistent format. What the software system will do is it will promote each municipality to report in the exact same way. However, every municipality's costs are slightly different. Wages are different across each municipality. The rate should be the same because we've dictated those are our actual prescribed provincial equipment rates to be used. So we have in place now, based on Strategy Corp's review, who recommended, one of the large things they recommended was how municipalities were reporting their financial expenditures. We had buckets of activities. However, we found through discussions with the LMPs that what constituted each bucket was a little different in each municipality. So we've worked over the last few years to ensure consistency that if you're patrolling, it goes in this bucket. If you're placing salt on the road, it goes into this bucket. So we've made some improvements to the financial reporting to ensure that we have some more accurate costs tracked. However, every municipality still does stuff differently, and I don't anticipate that implementing a management software solution which gathers all this information from various sources is going to yield a different result.
Councilor Jiguer.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So, I mean, typically I would support a feasibility study and to investigate, as again, we've agreed earlier with the fire chiefs when a compelling case was made. But this is still sounding like a solution in search of a problem at the county level. And we dislike it when the province comes up with, brilliant ideas. Let us help all we're seeing a common problem. Let us help you. And then not thinking about the implications and costs of implementing a, let's say, province-wide solution at the local level. And if we already know the answers, why waste $30,000? Unless I see all the LMPs, CAOs, and, public works supervisors here coming to council and saying, please help us with a joint solution, we would really appreciate council, like county council level support and a coordinated effort. Then we'd say, oh, okay, sounds like this is really needed. And then, well, let's look into it. Let's look into a study. This really sounds like there's no consensus anywhere. Nobody wants to come out and say it. So we're just passing the buck and then it's going to come down. And anyway, made my case. I will not support even a feasibility study.
Councilor Sloan.
No, I'm going to pass.
Deputy Warden Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I guess I don't disagree with the feasibility study per se. It just seems like the money Southwold's put out, and it does all of that, all the tracking. It's going to be integrated in the whole system, county roads and township roads. So we will be doing exactly like, you'll be able to see who's in the truck, where the truck was, what they were doing. Whether it's a road grader doing shouldering on the county roads, whether it's grass cutting on the county roads, everything has GPS in Southwold. So I don't see the issue. Like, Southwold's never had a problem with the road maintenance agreement. It's never been an issue for us. And I think with the system we've put in place, it just verifies what we have been doing all along.
Blaine, please.
Thank you, Warden Ketchba. Through you to members of County Council. A couple of thoughts to maybe assist County Council, hopefully assist. I've lived through 3 implementations of these types of systems, and I have the scars to prove it. A couple of them went extremely well, one not so well, but they are extremely valuable systems. There is no doubt, and I could spend a great deal of time speaking to council about the value of these types of systems. The purpose of them is to enhance your capital planning and your investment strategies. It's not just for tracking work orders. It's for tracking what tracking work orders can do for you is that you can ultimately, a system like this becomes one of your core technological systems that integrates with your financial system and integrates with your GIS system, which houses all the information on your assets. So with this type of system, you can then start to track literally every dollar expended on every asset you own. So the implementations that I've lived through, one, we got down to, we actually had park benches in our system. So every asset that the city owned, where I was at the time, everything that was done to that asset was tracked. And therefore, when it came to plotting our investment strategies, whether it be capital investment, that's the system that we leveraged to talk to council about where we thought the types of dollars and what types of activities should be invested in those assets. So the value of these types of systems is immense. Further to Mr. Duchek's comments, the cost of these is also immense, as is the work to implement them, because it integrates with everything. So the implementation of these is not, a small feat. The people behind them that you need to support the system and the technology behind them to support the systems are also fairly considerable investments. But as I said off the start, the value is really in what it's providing you from an investment planning, from a capital perspective. Where the discussion went at the CAO's table and I think with the road supervisors table is that because there are a number of different approaches, and to Deputy Warden Jones, a number of different systems that are already implemented, the best logical step next for the county to take, if county council wants the county to be involved in this type of thing, is to do that feasibility study, which would analyze the systems that our local municipal partners have already implemented, whether or not one of those could simply be leveraged. There are only a couple of systems. Citywide is one, CityWorks is another, Riva is another. And to fully leverage these types of systems, you'd want your facilities as well. Any type of recreational facility would be incorporated into these types of system. We had our treatment plants incorporated into these. And when you think about every asset that's contained within the sewage treatment plant, you're talking thousands of assets just in that one building. So to track all of that, to get that asset inventory and the condition of all of those all implemented in here into a system like this is a fair bit of work. But my thought at this point in time, or for county council's consideration, is the county's role with respect to this. If there is
further work, and, you know, I obviously wasn't part of the history of the road maintenance agreement, but if there's further work that can be done, I know Mr. Ducek and the team of people he's been working with have greatly advanced the reporting of that information. But if there's more work that council would like us to see in that area, we can certainly look at options for doing that. But that may not be through an implementation of a system like this. You might be looking at trying to solve a much smaller problem with a very major solution with this type of system. So it really comes down to what the role council wants the county to take with respect to management of assets, or assisting our municipal partners with the management of their assets as well as the county assets, and how best to do that. Like I said, with respect to the reporting of the road activities, we can certainly look to continue to refine those activities and make them, you know, better as we go along. But that may not require a system like this.
Question is, and it becomes down to, is it worth the investment of the investigation to refine either our current approach or to move forward with a different approach? Councillor Hens.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. My municipality, like Deputy Mayor Jones, has spent considerable amount of money on asset tracking, job costing. And I hear grumbling from my roads department that the RMA is inadequate. So in order to prove their point, we have to have accurate job costing. And I guess we don't know what we don't know. I could support the study. Can we integrate what we've already done into a countywide system? I would hope we could, because I wouldn't want to have my investment or our municipality's investment go for naught. So at this point, see where it leads us. To Councillor Sloan's point, $30,000 is $30,000, but I think we could absorb that in a county budget going forward.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Councillor Crockett, did you have a comment or?
Yeah, I thank you, Mr. Warden. Just a question and a comment. I'm looking at the cost of $30,000 for a feasibility study. I'm wondering whether or not we have the ability in-house to do this study. I know it's a lot of work for staff and everything, but you know, consultants are a bad word sometimes, and maybe here too. However, I said I'm sort of in favor of taking a look at this, but I'm just wondering if we could do this study in-house.
One would maybe argue, and I'll defer that to staff, but the cost is the cost, whether it's external or internal, is still the cost. Yeah. Any other comments from anyone or questions? Councillor Noble?
Through you, Warden, when we're talking about tracking assets, I'm just wondering how we track the county assets at this point right now. Like, I know we're kind of talking about roads, but then we also have a lot more assets than
Lot
just
more
the
than that.
roads. So I'm curious how we do that now.
Okay, Peter, are you prepared to answer that, please?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Warden, council has received the most updated asset management plan that the county's developed. We're on track to follow the regulations set up by the province. That's mandated by every municipality to track our assets. We have a very detailed inventory, condition assessments for all our facilities. We complete building condition assessments annually, every 5 years on a cycle. Our roads are reviewed internally, as they have been for the last 30 years. Every section of road is its own asset. We understand its construction history, its functional classification, where traffic projections and needs are going into the future. And that helps formulate the 10-year capital plan that council sees on an annual basis. So the county has a good handle on the assets we are responsible for managing and maintaining. And so I hope that answers your question.
Councillor Noble?
Just to follow up through you, Mr. Warden. So by tracking those, we actually know how much money we've spent on those assets we could get. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, anything further from anyone? Okay, my inclination is to let the original motion stand and we'll see where we go from there. Catherine?
Resolved that the report titled Work Order Software Feasibility Study from the Director of Engineering Services dated November 12th, 2024 be received and filed, and that a project be included within the 2025 budget deliberations to complete a countywide works order software solution feasibility and implementation study estimated to be valued at $30,000.
Do we have a mover and seconder for that? See Counselor Noble and Deputy Warden Jones. All in favor of that? Any opposed? Okay, it is carried. Thank you. Shall we do one more and then take a break? Okay, we have the. Oh, that's a big one. Oh, I'm sorry, I got over to the wrong, I skipped a page. Well, I've skipped a page. Here we are. Director of Engineering Services, the Mapleton Bridge Rehabilitation Tender Contract Award. Peter, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden, to the rest of County Council. As part of the 2025 capital budget, a tender has been advertised for the rehabilitation of Mapleton Bridge. This structure is located approximately 600 meters north of Ron McNeil Line on Belmont Road. This section of Belmont Road will form a detour route necessary for the replacement of King Bridge, which is also going to be part of the 2025 budget. And therefore, this rehabilitation project has been purposely scheduled in advance to coordinate with that work and to minimize disruption to the traveling public. Mapleton Bridge was constructed in 1951. It was a download by the province of Ontario in 1998 as part of Belmont Road, and it requires significant rehabilitation work in order to extend its useful life. 20 contractors downloaded the tender documents and 10 submitted bids, the lowest of which was FACA Incorporated for $828,000. The county staff had previously put in a placeholder in the 2025 budget of $936,000. So this is less than what we had estimated. And the 2025 capital budget will now be modified to reflect this actual tendered amount results. We expect the project to start no earlier than November the 25th and be completed by April 25th of 2025 to be prepared to serve as a detour route for the King Bridge when it begins in May of 2025. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
And thank you for that report, Peter. Any questions or comments? It is nice to see that some of these contract awards can come in under budget. Okay, Catherine, please.
Resolved that FACA Incorporated be selected to complete the Mapleton Bridge rehabilitation, tender number 2024 T34, at a total price of $828,000, inclusive of a $75,000 contingency allowance and exclusive of HST, and that the Warden and Chief Administrative Officer Clerk be directed and authorized to sign the contract.
Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Welcome back. We left off at section 6.5 from the Manager of Administrative Services, the Deputy Clerk, regarding the 2025 County Council meeting schedule. Catherine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you to County Council, this is the report that we bring annually to get Council to consider and approve a schedule of council meetings for the next year. So this report included the proposed schedule of council meetings for 2025, incorporating feedback we received from council last meeting about going down to one scheduled meeting in the summer, with, of course, the option to call a special meeting if something time sensitive were to arise. So staff have proposed the second Tuesday, the first meetings that we usually have of both July and August for those meetings. The only other thing that deviates from our regular schedule of the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month are actually in November next year. Our council meeting falls on Remembrance Day. So we are proposing that we have the meeting on Wednesday morning instead. Remembrance Day is a holiday for administrative staff, but also counselors tend to be quite busy on Remembrance Day, attending events at their various cenotaphs. So right when county council would be meeting is the time that often counselors would be required to be elsewhere. So we are recommending that we move that meeting to the Wednesday morning, November 12th at 9 a.m. Other than that, we're actually have been quite lucky this year that Roma and Ontario Good Roads do not conflict with any of our council meetings. So the schedule is before council, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, Catherine. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Yes, Councillor Sloan.
Thank you, Warden, through you to Catherine and to my colleagues that have been at the Horseshoe for longer. Have we ever done a county council meeting in one of the lower tiers?
Not that as long as I've been here. It's not something that typically is done. I know that it's been discussed at BAM for doing, moving BAM's council around. And the argument that always comes back to me is one that, we talked about from a private board years ago. The corporate office is the corporate office. The resources are here and we have the ability to live stream from here. So I wouldn't encourage it, but I'll entertain whatever council thinks. Deputy Warden Jones?
Thank you, Mr. I know there are certain procedural things you'd have to overcome because you are specific to where the council table is, and you have to give proper notice to the public that you're not going to be there on any
Right.
given council meeting. So there'll be some challenges.
Well, absolutely. I guess the argument would be if there's a public meeting, you can hold them wherever. And we've done that. And in fact, we're scheduling for the budget meetings, public meetings across the county. If it was a public meeting on a specific issue in BAM, again, if dealing with say a community center in the South End, we went to that community center. Or if it was in Richmond to deal with a water issue, we went to Richmond. But just simply from the corporate business was held in the corporate office. It's just my 2 cents. Any other comments or questions regarding the schedule? Getting away easy.
Resolved that the report titled 2025 County Council Meeting Schedule from the Manager of Administrative Services Deputy Clerk dated November 12th, 2024 be received and filed, and that the 2025 County Council Meeting Schedule be approved as presented, and that notice of the 2025 schedule of County Council meetings and any special meetings outside of the adopted schedule of regular meetings of council be made available from the municipal office and posted on the county's website in accordance with Elgin County Council's procedural bylaw.
Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Widner and Councillor Cookett will second. All in favor? And that is carried. 6.6 from the Manager of Administrative Services, the Deputy Clerk, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Roma delegation requests. Catherine.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you to County Council, we have received notice from Roma that they are accepting delegation requests currently, which it will close on November 27th, 2024. So staff would just like to seek council's opinion as to whether we should be doing any delegations, requesting any delegations with various ministries at the Roma conference in January, and if so, on which topics. The report does provide a list of delegations that were attended by the warden and some as well by the deputy warden at the recent AMO conference in August. In 2024, we did not participate in any delegations at Roma back in January. But yes, so staff would just like to know what is council's will in terms of applying for those delegations. And we will do so by November 27th. Thank you.
Okay, let's open this up for discussion. There are a number of fronts I recognize that the county is involved in. Some of them are at let's call it a working group level with ministry staff on some of the larger issues. Is there anything that comes to mind that we should proceed from a political front? Deputy Warden Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm hesitant to say this. I'm still licking my wounds from AMO, but public health. Just the general discussion with the minister on maybe keeping public health in their lane. Yes.
Public health units,
Yeah.
not necessarily, okay, physician recruitment or something like that. No,
No.
public health.
No, I don't think with physician recruitment, we're going to get anywhere.
No. No, that, she kind of made that quite clear, didn't she? The minister, that is. Yeah, that's probably a decent one.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, I can support, that. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, Counselor Sloan.
Thank you, Warden, through you. When we look at some of the questions, I think that, first of all, I'd like to, an understanding of where staff think we should be looking, but I know you had the Minister of Transport here in the spring, but we still have some questions about the Power Co development. We're told that the transportation strategy and schedule for that development is available, just not to Central Elgin or the county at this point. So one of the issues that, as you raised, Warden, was the county was concerned about transportation, about the different avenues. And so I just wondered if, I know we had the minister here, but if there was some interest in any of the files pertaining, I know Matt's here at the back, but if there's municipal affairs and housing with respect to the site plans, that kind of stuff. So those are my two suggestions. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Counselor Sloan. Just making some notes here. Any other thoughts from members? One of the biggest critics or criticisms I would have of this whole thing that's going on is the lack of information sharing. It's absurd. Counselor Jones, Deputy Warden Jones, excuse
It
me.
just seems to be very convenient who knows what and when right now, but there's a lot of issues at the local level that really don't pertain to the county per se, but some of the biggest issues Southold sees is with our emergency vehicles, snowplow, sanders, the fire trucks especially. Diesel emission fluid issues are becoming almost a daily occurrence with the frontline service vehicles shutting down at a moment's notice. We had a rescue unit going to a medical call shut down in the middle of the going to the call, and you have to call in from Talbotville, which delays response by 5-10 minutes. And just because of a sensor plugging up, because the trucks don't run long enough to clean the system properly. And we feel they should have overrides that they can push the button to get the truck there and back, and then they can fix it later. But I think if the other municipalities were pushing for that, it might help the cause, because it's becoming a very serious thing, and it's becoming almost every time we send the trucks out in the wintertime, one of the trucks shuts down. And that becomes a hazard too. I'm not sure if other municipalities are recognizing that right now, but I know it's become a big issue for Southall.
Yeah, I would have to comment that from our emergency services fleet in BAM, we haven't experienced that. We've experienced some other things that have happened, but it's generally the public works vehicles that end up going down, which is strange because usually they get more hours on them, but they'll go down as well. Counselor Noble.
Through Warden, well, the county did kind of have that problem when we went out for ambulances. We went out for gas ambulances instead of diesel ones to avoid that problem.
Right.
So it is a county problem as well.
All right. Counselor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. I appreciate what Deputy Warden Jones is saying. I know our fire trucks, so I believe have overrides on them. And we had some problems. I think ours do, because we've asked the question about it. But I do agree these mission systems are poorly thought out and they're failure prone, and it's across the board. So, yeah, everybody's moving away from diesel to gasoline, even all the school bus companies, because they can't keep the vehicles running. So yeah, if anything we could do to promote some of that changes, that'd be great.
So again, to assist the local municipal partners or coordinate some kind of a lobby to the minister. And you're suggesting to Minister of Transportation?
Or Minister of Environment, I think.
Minister of
I
Environment?
think they're the ones that are in charge of that, I believe. I could double check, but I believe that's the one who we're going
Right.
to talk to. We're just asking for it to be removed from all frontline emergency service vehicles. There's, for the amount of vehicles in the Ontario, it would seem to make sense, just have that ability not to have the garbage put on to begin with, and just
Right.
have just a straight diesel engine running. The new diesel engines are pretty efficient. It's, it's the amount of extra fuel that they use for the burn actually it's kind of a wash, really.
Hmm. Okay, so essentially then from this particular issue, it'd be a case of coordinating with our LMPs and trying to gather the information to put a briefing together. That possible in the short amount of time you've got? Okay. Counselor Noble?
Should the Minister of Health be included in this for the emergency vehicles?
Perhaps. Or is it something under Solicitor General? I'm trying to think my way through it. The hierarchy. Yeah. Good answer. We'll have to figure that one out.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably more Minister of Environment at this point, but we can certainly, when we do some research into the topic, we can certainly look and see whether or not Minister of Health would be also advantageous for us.
All right, thank you. Counselor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ward. Just to clarify, are we being told that we have ambulances of gasoline power that are shutting down because of emissions? Because that really shouldn't happen.
No, no, I think it's the diesel engines.
It's diesels for us. We don't have any gas engine except on a couple.
Okay. So no ambulances are being involved with us. They're all gasoline.
Yeah. Counselor Shiger?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just going back to the previous item about issues around communication, and I just want to be cautious because one of the challenges with delegation is that you're meeting with one minister and one ministry at a time. This is multiple ministries, and we do have a facilitator, I believe, still assigned to this file. And I would hate to go or give the impression that we're not satisfied or we're going behind the facilitator to express some concern. So I'm lukewarm on that particular item, because I'm not hearing what exactly is the issue we would be advocating for and to what ministry. So if we could give it some good thought, please.
I would agree. There are certain, I think if we're talking about the transportation corridors or the burden that we're expecting, there has been less than forthright full information provided. And it's a concern. It's hard to plan when you don't know. But since there is already, as you say, work going at the working group level, if you will, through the ministry officials, how far do we go? And is there a reason for us to go there yet? So, I would caution, yes. I don't want to appear as standing in the way of this, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the county is treated fairly and equitably. Fair statement, Councilor Sloan.
Through you, Warden, I think that's a fair statement, and I don't think there's anything, it's not like one or the other. I
Right.
mean, the facilitator that's working responds to the Ministry of Housing and hasn't been especially forthright with the information given thus far. I think when we have the opportunity to speak with ministers, it's an important file. It's important to the deputy warden's point, we had a town hall 2 weeks ago and people can't believe that we don't have the information that they think is, that they're requesting of the Central Elgin Council, let alone the Elgin County Council. So
Right.
I would say that this would be complementary to any discussions we're having with a facilitator. That's my view. Thank you, Warden.
This is due the 27th. We have we have a day if we want to do, I suppose there's an opportunity to council or staff could rough out and communicate that in a confidential manner to council. And we will give you a time frame to respond back. If we have to, we could call an emergent meeting, but I don't know if we need to do that at this point. Will that satisfy council? Just have it roughed out and get back to us, or so we can respond? All right, let's do it that way. Is there anything else then, from an issues point of view, that we should be taking forward to this Roma conference? Keep in mind that we can always request a meeting with a minister sometime, outside of the conference system. Somewhat torn with saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We were promised to have a presence with the Minister of Infrastructure, and we never had one. You can see her at some point. Well, I think ultimately we will all have an opportunity to comment on the drafting from staff, and if someone has a major opposition, we'll be talking back and forth on email for sure. Okay. Okay, here we go.
Resolved that the report titled Rural Ontario Municipal Association Delegation Requests from the Manager of Administrative Services, Deputy Clerk, dated November 12th, 2024, be received and filed, and that staff prepare draft delegation materials for delegations with the Ministry of Health regarding public health units, the Ministry of the Environment regarding sensor overrides on diesel frontline service vehicles, and with the Ministry of Transportation and Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding the development of the former cyclands in Central Elgin and other developments in the region, and that staff bring these drafts to council for consideration on November 26th, 2024.
Before I ask for a mover and seconder, Catherine, is it possible that council can at least see some materials so they can provide feedback before the 26th?
Absolutely.
All right, that's the understanding then. Okay, do we have a mover and seconder for that? Or questions first? Deputy Warden Jones?
Just a question with regards to diesel emission fluid, I would say removal of that requirement on frontline emergency vehicles.
All right. Okay. With that amendment, does anyone wish to move? Councillor Sloan will. Anyone wish to second? Councillor Latham? All right. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on then with 6.7, the Manager of Administrative Services, Deputy Clerk, updates to the Warden's election procedures. Catherine?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you to County Council. At our meeting on October 22nd, Elgin County Council provided staff with feedback on proposed updates to Elgin County's procedural bylaw, and they requested two things primarily. One, that staff provides suggestions regarding changes to the council meeting structure, as well as provide suggested changes to the warden's election procedure. Staff have already started considerable work regarding the proposed change to a council structure. However, it is a considerable undertaking, and there are many different elements to consider as you change the format. Other parts of the bylaw also then need to be changed, and templating and all that sort of thing. So staff want to make sure that what we bring back in terms of a change in structure has been very well thought out. But we also didn't want to hold up a consideration of changes to the annual warden's election procedures because that is coming up on December 10th. So before council were some suggested changes to the bylaw amendments that amended procedures to the warden's election in 2021, which are the current procedures that stand, so that council can consider these potential changes with time to, if they so wish, adopt an updated bylaw amendment on November 26th that can be in place for the warden's election on December 10th. So I am just going to go through the sections. So this is currently section 9 of the bylaw. And I'm going to go through some proposed changes. The changes that staff, legal services and administrative services have considered relate primarily to section 9.8, 9.9, and 9.10, which are the situations where ties occur. So the procedural changes, staff were proposing that in situations where a tie must be broken, an open verbal vote will be added after 2 rounds of balloting and before names are drawn. So currently, the way that the bylaw stands is that when a tie occurs in certain situations, there are 2 rounds of balloting, and if there's still a tie after that, then names are put in a box and the name that is drawn, if there are 2 candidates, is the successful warden. So this is suggesting adding in a step in between there, which would be a verbal vote. So I'm just going to go through, there's a few scenarios that are laid out in the bylaw, depending on how many people are running. So I'm going to go through the scenarios and how they would change. So in section 9.8, so I'll go back a little. It's not in the report, but it's in the bylaw. Section 9.7 deals with if there are multiple candidates and after 1 round of voting, no one receives the majority, but none of them are tied, then the person with the least votes drops off and the others go into another round of balloting until a majority is reached. However, section 8, 9, and 10, 9, 8, 9, 9, and 9, 10 deal with where there are tie situations. So in section 8, in this scenario, there are more than 2 candidates running, and after the first round of balloting, no one has achieved a majority, but there is a tie between 2 or more candidates who have achieved the second highest number of votes. So say there's someone, they got maybe 4 votes. That's not a majority. So they have not won a majority, but the ones in second place are tied. So the first person with the highest number of votes would go to the side, and then there would be another round of voting, including only the candidates who were tied. After this round of voting, the candidate who received the highest number of votes would then move on to another round of balloting against the candidate who had received the highest in the previous round. However, if there's still a tie between the 2 that were tied previously, after this second round of balloting, then this is when the verbal vote would be called. If there is still a tie after this, then that's when those names would go into the box and be drawn out. And sorry, I know that this can be, this is a little complex with a lot of different scenarios. So after the open vote, if there's still a tie, the names will go into the box and 1 name will be drawn. This is the name of the person, the candidate who will continuing in the balloting with the original first candidate who received the highest number of votes in the first round of balloting. During this process, it's recommended that we put in the bylaw that the candidate who received the highest number of votes during the first round of balloting shall not participate in the voting to break the tie with their possible opponents. So if you're the one who's received the highest number of votes and you're waiting to see who's going to break that tie, you don't get to vote for who your opponent will be. So section 9 deals with a scenario where there are 2 or more candidates, but they are all tied. after the first round of balloting. So in this situation, another round of balloting will ensue. And if the result is still a tie, then the open vote is taken. After this, the candidate that receives the least number of votes will be eliminated. But if after the open vote, there is still a tie, the names of the candidates are placed in a box and one is drawn out. In this situation, the person who is drawn out is the one who is eliminated, and the remaining candidates go on to another round of balloting to hopefully achieve a majority. Under Section 10, this is the section where if there are only two candidates running, after the first round, if there is a tie, another round of balloting occurs. If the result is still a tie, then there is the open vote. If after the open vote, the result is still a tie, then that's where those names will be placed in a box and one drawn out. The name drawn out is the one that is selected for the position of the warden. So an additional consideration was that staff have not recommended in this bylaw any consecutive term limits for the office of the warden. As council may be aware, from the years of 2003 to 2007, there were consecutive term limits of office on the warden that limited any member from holding office for more than 2 consecutive years. That term limit was removed in 2007 on staff recommendation, having consulted with legal counsel, and was not put back in subsequent versions of the procedural bylaw. So that's sort of, I've walked you through the process. I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments. It is a little bit of a difficult process trying to determine how to break a tie. So I am happy to attempt to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right. Any questions and or comments from members of council? Councillor Sloan.
Thank you, Warden, through you. In the past, my concern is with VIII with respect to an open process. So if 3 people were going to run and 3 people got 3 votes, it would be voted on once. It would come back to council. It would go back for a second vote. Is that correct? And then after that, it would come and we would go around the circle in open and publicly declare who we were voting for. So the private ballot is somewhat sacrosanct. So I'm not understanding why we would go to open. Last time we went to the draw right after. Could you help me understand that open piece, Catherine, please? Thank you.
Thank you, through Mr. Warden, through you to Councillor Sloan. The open ballot was just a suggestion from staff as a way to, an alternative way to break a tie before going to drawing from a box. Just because our current procedures are 2 rounds of voting through the secret ballot and then drawing from the box. But council did want some alternative options. So that's just an alternative option that to break a tie. There could be other ways, maybe continuing in rounds of balloting until a tie is broken. That just may go on indefinitely.
Councillor Noble.
So last time we just drew a name and that was the winner. If this is going to be something that goes forward, why not just keep that same process?
So I think under section 9(8), what they're suggesting is you've got more than 2 candidates. I guess where I'm struggling is if you have to go to the lottery, the one you pull is the name going forward against who else? Or is it the name that's eliminated? That'd be 9-9, right? That's 9-9. It is a little confusing, isn't it? Yeah.
Through your word, last time the name that was pulled was the winner.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense, like in a lottery, if you pull a name and that becomes the first loser, that just doesn't make sense to me. So if we're gonna go to that level, the names that get pulled should be the winners, not technically the first loser.
I think Andrew's here too. Yep.
Through you, Warden, if I might respond to that.
Please.
Of course, council has discretion to do whatever it wishes. The reason there's that difference is that when you have 3 and they're tied, the thought is if one is eliminated, it is more democratic to then have council choose between the remaining two using votes rather than to randomly choose one of the three. And so council then gets its preference between the remaining two after one is randomly eliminated. Whereas when you have a tie of two and council has already expressed no preference between them, the winner is drawn. Of course, council can take whatever approach it wishes.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions? Counselor Jiguer.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I for sure, I will agree with Councillor Sloan. I will not support any solution that would include an open vote. I think in Canada, we abolished that in 1874 because we understood that a free and fair election means that all votes must be free of any scrutiny by the public, by the media, by peers. So we're not going back. We have the power as grown-ups, professionals with integrity to eliminate ties. If we're not satisfied, if the concern, again, what is the problem? What are we trying to find a solution for? There seemed to be some dissatisfaction last time with the draw. So if that's the case, I would suggest just keep voting because we have the power to eliminate a tie, even a three-way tie. Amongst ourselves, you can take a break between votes. Give people a chance to think and rethink, but people can withdraw, people can move their votes. There's 9 of us. So my preferred approach is that we keep voting, that we actually vote, and we act like the grown-ups professionals with integrity that elected us here. And the ties will take care of themselves.
Counselor Sloan, then Counselor Cookett.
As usual, I agree with Councillor Jiguer. I also believe that I like that excellent comment, and you're very succinct about 1887. But we could also, to Councillor Jiguer's point, we could ask for them to speak again. So we could say we've got a three-way tie. Would you like to come forward and give a discussion? So again, we're in agreement. Thank you.
Counselor Cookett.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just a quick comment. I certainly agree with both Councillor Sloan and Councillor Jiguer that secret ballot is sacrosanct, and I don't believe that we should go to an open ballot at all because I really haven't heard a rationale for it anyway, but I don't think we should go there. And I think that having a break between votes is a great idea. Thank you.
All right. I don't wish to put legal on the spot, but I'm going to. Andrew, can you give us an opinion on the legality of a vocal or verbal open ballot?
Certainly, could you just on
On the election of the particular ward? I mean, we participate in open ballots around here all the time. Every motion is done by an open ballot. I realize that. However, that's why I'm asking Andrew.
Sure,
Because
so-
recently, it used to be a vocal or an open ballot.
So I will first sort of give a general response through you, Warden, which is not specifically legal advice. I believe simply the theory of the open vote was that after private ballots, if you had a tie resulting from, for example, a member who was abstaining repeatedly, the open vote might motivate that person not to reveal themselves as the abstainee. However, there's no requirement for an open ballot. Council has the ability to choose the method by which it wants to appoint its warden. And so if it's the will of council to eliminate that, then council's free to do so.
Thank you for that explanation. Councillor Latham.
I personally, through you, Mr. Warden, I personally don't agree with the open vote. I think the ballot is by far the best method, and we just carry on until there's a conclusion.
Councillor Hens.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. County Council is set up with 9 members to make decisions on very difficult issues. And in my mind, this isn't the most difficult issue, the election of a warden, that we face. So I see no reason that we cannot elect a warden by majority with 9 people. It's simple math. So everybody has to take their responsibility and vote. It's that simple.
Thank you for your comments. Blaine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just because we might be able to simplify things greatly, because I can't stress enough the amount of time that's been put into discussing how to deal with various scenarios. If the thought of around the council table is to eliminate the open vote, absolutely, we can incorporate that. And if the second thought around the council table is to eliminate any drawing from the box, and we could structure it is if council has 2 votes or 2 secret ballot rounds, and if there is still not a majority, then provide the candidates with an opportunity to speak again. In addition to what they've already spoken to at the start of the election, we could provide that second opportunity for the candidates to have, say, another 5 or 10 minutes or whatever to address council again, to see if that will persuade anyone. So we could incorporate that, say, after, say, 2 rounds of balloting.
Any other comments? Are you ready? You can always ask a question. I would hope that staff would ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you to County Council, I just want to clarify for when I bring back the amendment at the next meeting, that we are going to dispense with any idea of an open vote. And that after 2 rounds of balloting, if there's still a tie, then the candidates, whether it be 2 running or 4 running, they all have another opportunity to address council again. And then we go into another 2 rounds of balloting. And if we're still not able to achieve a warden, then they would be able to again address, and we would just keep continuing to go on indefinitely until we get a warden. All right.
All right, Catherine, you have a motion for us?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. That the report titled Updates to the Warden's Election Procedures from the Manager of Administrative Services / Deputy Clerk dated November 12th, 2024 be received and filed, and that staff incorporate County Council direction regarding the proposed changes to the procedures for the inaugural meeting and annual election of the Warden into a draft bylaw for consideration at the November 26th, 2024 meeting, and that this report act as notice of the intent to repeal bylaw 2142 and adopt an amendment to bylaw 1941 that governs the inaugural meeting and annual election of the warden at the November 26, 2024 regular council meeting of council.
Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Warden Jones. Counselor Hentz. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on with section 7, council correspondence. 7.2 items for information, the consent agenda. 4 pieces of correspondence, the in St. Thomas Elgin newsletter, the resolution from the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region regarding the Ontario Provincial Police Notice of Motion for funding support, County of Elgin Emergency Management Crisis and Emergency Communications Workshops, and the letter from Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada at the Prime Minister's Awards call for nominations. I would just comment that the Emergency Management Workshop, I think, was put in there just to remind members that this is coming up on the 18th and 19th. I think heads of councils, which we all are encouraged to try to attend some of those sessions if you can. Other than that, does anyone have any particular piece of correspondence they wish to draw attention to? Okay, seeing none then. Catherine?
Resolved that correspondence items 7.2.1 to 7.2.4 be received and filed.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Noble will move. Counselor Latham will second. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Brings us to section 8, other business. Statements and inquiries from members. Does anyone have anything? Okay, I have a quick update for you. There are a number of Christmas Santa Claus or festive parades coming up. There are 9 of them actually across the county. 7 of them, of course, occur before the 10th of December. And what we're planning with staff is to have access to the county cruiser out here to put into these parades. And I'm inviting any member of council who wants to attend these parades in this to please let me know. And we'll just meet up and we'll use it. I will send you a list of when the parades are and just, again, extend that offer of invitation. The first one actually is in Elmer on November the 23rd at 2 p.m. And then it's followed by the Dickens Day Parade on the 29th. So again, that's an opportunity that we haven't had before, is to use some decorated county assets to get the county out there. So I'll send you an updated, like a list of the parade schedule, and hopefully some members will take me up on this. All right, so that's all I've got. If there are no other statements or inquiries from members, then I will ask for any notices of motion. How about matters of urgency? Perfect. We're going to move into closed meeting item. Catherine?
Resolved that we do now proceed into closed meeting session in accordance with the Municipal Act to discuss the following matters under Municipal Act Section 239-2. Closed meeting item number 1, closed meeting minutes, October 22nd, 2024, and closed meeting item number 2, White Station lease. Under Section C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
Do have a mover and seconder for this? Councillor Widner, Councillor Sloan will second. All in favor? That is carried. All right, welcome back. We are now ready to rise and report.
Resolved that we do now rise and report.
We have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Shakir, Councillor Sloan will second. All in favor? That's carried. Closed meeting item number 1.
Resolved that the October 22nd, 2024 closed meeting minutes be adopted.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Noble? Deputy Warden Jones? All in favor? That's carried. Closed meeting item number 2, White Station lease.
Resolved that staff retain a certified property appraiser to complete a fair market value report for number 42343 Fruit Ridge Line for potential sale and report back to council with its findings.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Jiguer, and seconded by Deputy Warden Jones. All in favor? That's carried. Section 11, motion to adopt recommendations for the Committee of the Whole.
Resolved that we do now adopt recommendations of the Committee of the Whole.
We have a mover and seconder. Counselor Sloan and Counselor Latham will second. All in favor? It's carried. Section 12, the bylaws.
Bylaw number 2439, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Municipal Council of the Corporation of the County of Elgin at the November 12th, 2024 meeting. Resolved that bylaw number 2439 be now read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Sloan. Deputy Warden Jones, all in favor? That's carried. Finally, the adjournment motion.
Resolved that we do now adjourn at 11:35 a.m. to meet again on November 26th, 2024 at 9:00 a.m.
Mover and seconder, Counselor Whitner and Counselor Sloan will second. All in favor? That is carried. We are adjourned.